Humans get a raging hard-on for a good emblem. Some emblems are simple, others are more complex. Religions also love using symbols, so we're gonna take a look at their fascinating history. You've probably seen our first symbol in some hippie's arm before. This is Om, the primordial sound, the essence of everything. Om comes from the syllable Aum, which comes from Old Sanskrit, the sacred language of Hinduism. I would describe Om as the universal sound found in everything and everyone. When the universe was created, the first sound you could hear was Om is recited in sacred texts, during sacred ceremonies, and especially in meditation. It can be found in the entrance of Hindu temples, and the cool part is, it changes depending on the language it's written on. Same sound, different script. Om is also found in other dharmic religions, such as Buddhism, Jainism, and Sikhism. It truly is the universal sound. Although certain historical characters have ruined the image of the swastika in the Western world, this is a symbol that is far older than the Nazis, and is still extensively used in Eastern temples. In Hinduism, it's a symbol of prosperity, and you write it at the beginning of books and the entrance to temples. Putting a swastika outside your home protects you from evil forces and bad luck, but I suggest you don't attempt this trick if you live in a Western country. Buddhists also use the swastika, often placing it on the Buddha's hand and chest, signifying his attainment of nirvana. But you know what the crazy thing is? Countless ancient cultures used the swastika. It originated independently in the Caucasus, Africa, Iran, Japan, and even the Americas. But how did all these ancient cultures come up with swastika on their own? One possible explanation is astronomy. When you look up at the Big Dipper as it revolves around the North Pole, it kinda creates a swastika shape. Thus, it's the perfect symbol to represent the cycle of the universe, an idea that lots of ancient people subscribe to. I would bet $1 million that you've seen the yin and yang before. It's become like an Asian stereotype by now. Yin-yang originated in China during the Warring States era, and is mostly associated with Lao Tzu, the founder of Taoism. The lighter side of the ball is called yang, the active principle, masculine and harsh. The dark side is yin, the receiving principle, feminine and soft. Yin-yang can basically represent any duality in life. Night and day, light and shadow, order and disorder, good music and Nickelback, you get it. What's cool is that each side has this tiny seed of the opposite color, meaning that yin and yang are not opposites, but relative to each other. Both sides are essential for universal balance. Today you can find the yin-yang not only in Taoist temples, but also in medicine, martial arts, and Kung Fu Panda. The concept of the dual nature of the universe has been incredibly influential in all aspects of Chinese philosophy, extending far beyond Lao Tzu. The Dharma Chakra, or Dharma Wheel, goes very back in time to the Indus Valley civilization, originating as a solar disk and representing the solar deity Surya. Today the wheel is associated mainly with Buddhism, where it can represent several things: the Eightfold Path, the Four Noble Truths, and even the Buddha himself. The Dharma Chakra is there to remind us that by following the teachings of Buddha, we can also reach nirvana, the release from our eternal cycle of rebirth. Thanks Buddha. You can find the Dharma Chakra all around India, both in Hindu and Buddhist temples. By now you probably noticed the huge overlap among these Eastern religions. The Om, the swastika, the yin-yang, and the Dharma Chakra all represent the flow of the cosmos. Dharmic religions especially put a heavy emphasis on cycles, the cycle of birth and rebirth, so it's only fitting that its symbols would also remind us of this cyclical nature of reality. Before we move on to the West, let's take a look at one more symbol originating from Japan, the Torii Gate. Unlike the symbols we've seen so far, the Torii Gate is an actual physical structure found in Shinto temples. Shinto is the native religion of Japan, and it's centered around the belief on kami, gods and spirits that can be found everywhere in nature. When you want to present yourself to the kami, you want to pass through the Torii Gate to purify yourself. Torii are found at the entrance of every Shinto temple. Some are found even in crazy locations, look at this. And they have come to represent Shintoism as a whole. Now let's move on to the Middle East. This is the Star of David. The shield did not originate in the Jewish scriptures, but rather from the Seal of Solomon, a symbol used by Jewish Kabbalists and Muslims during the Middle Ages. This shape, called a hexagram, originally served as a decoration and would only gain religious significance later on. In the 17th century, the Jewish community in Prague was the first to adopt the star as their symbol, and it would later be picked up by more Jewish communities in Eastern Europe and ultimately by the State of Israel. Today it has been accepted as the universal symbol of all Jewish people, and you can find it in synagogues all around the world. This symbol needs no introduction. Cross-shaped emblems predate Christianity by thousands of years, the most famous being the Egyptian Ankh. I mean, crosses are really easy to draw. Although the Romans used several cross shapes to torture their victims, some got really creative at this. It's most likely Jesus was executed in one of these. The cross would become associated with Christians as far back as the 2nd century, sometimes used even by people mocking them, such as this graffiti saying, Alexamenos worships his god, with a donkey-headed Jesus. The cross has evolved from a symbol of shame and torture into representing Christ himself. Christians use the cross in their churches, homes, and even around their necks, and the shape of the cross also differs slightly depending on the church. This one needs a blue pill, and even Scientologists have their own version of the cross. You've probably seen the Jesus fish as a bumper sticker somewhere in West Virginia. Ichthys means fish in Greek, and each letter formed out the phrase, Jesus Christ, God's Son, Savior. We can think of it as a secret code, where non-Christians would look at this thing and be like, where's the fish? But Christians would read it and say, wow, you're one of me. Some believe that the ichthys was used among persecuted Christians to identify each other without being caught, but there's no solid evidence for this theory. Sorry. It was only in the last century that the Jesus fish gained popularity, often being used by evangelicals, but not common in houses of worship. Some atheists have also adopted the symbol for themselves to tease the Christians a bit. The crescent symbol has been popular in the Near East for millennia, and the Sassanid Persian Empire used it mostly on their coins. When the Muslims came out of Arabia and conquered Persia, they kept the emblem for themselves. The symbol was used in Muslim flags as far back as the 14th century, although at the time it wasn't really associated with the religion itself. The Ottoman Empire adopted the symbol for its flag, and since the Islamic Caliphate was in Istanbul at the time, more nations started copying the Ottomans and using the moon on their own flags. After the Caliphate was basically abolished by Mustafa Ataturk, Muslim communities and pan-Islamists would adopt the crescent to represent Islam. Today you can find the symbol in a lot of flags, at the top of mosques, and I've also seen it in a few cars. We have one more symbol for you, and it's one of my favorites. This is the Hamsa, and you need it to protect yourself against the evil eye. The evil eye is a pervasive superstition found in cultures all around the world, but especially around the Mediterranean. It is the belief that an evil glance by someone else, usually driven by envy, can place a curse upon you. To protect yourself, you need an amulet. Muslims also have different ways of protecting themselves from the evil eye. When a Muslim receives a compliment by someone, for example, "Oh, that's a nice car you have," it's customary to say, "Mashallah," meaning God has willed it. This is said to avoid the appearance of disturbing one's blessings, and that way people would not look upon you with envy and accidentally place a curse on you. I saw these amulets all around Turkey. Sometimes they even have little bows on them, but you can find similar talismans in many different cultures. Well guys, that was 10 religious symbols for you. Which one was your favorite? Let me know in the comments below. I love making videos about humanity, so if you like humanity, subscribe. This has been your host Sauce. We'll see you next time.